Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Extra Holes with PGA Professionals, Alex Kohler and Joe Rocha. And we are honored and privileged to have with us a fellow PGA professional and New England PGA Hall of Fame member, Tom Cavicchi. Tom, welcome to the program.
Nice to be with you.
Tom is a return guest, our first return guest. So we double appreciate all your time. And Tom, like I said, is the New England PGA Hall of Fame member and also a two-time Player Development Award winner, New England PGA. That used to be called the Horton Smith Award, right, Tom?
Correct.
It's a prestigious award and must give you great pleasure. And it's just an incredible thing how you mentor and give back to your fellow pros. I think a lot of us pros sometimes want to think that we might have some information that other pros don't, and maybe we don't want to let them know it. But you're not in that category, Tom. You're willing to share. Is that fair? And where's the dividing line there? You're on the other side of that fence. Where does that help us out so we can be more like you, Tom, someday?
I think it's very difficult to do things in a vacuum. I think that the more you put yourself out there in front of people and you talk to other people, you can get some ideas that you didn't have. And sometimes you just have to let everybody in to see if what you do is somewhat effective, and then see the other ideas. And then we've had many talk there. I can remember one Cracker Barrel, Kevin Walker. He didn't want to share. He was into Morad then and other things. And it was like, it's no secret. Morad's been around. These things have been there, done that. And everything gets shared. For example, I know you're with Michael Jacobs, and I respect Michael. I think he's fantastic and everything else. But Michael just throws stuff out there on Facebook and stuff he just throws stuff out there. I mean, he's guarded with some, but he doesn't care. Michael doesn't care. He doesn't have an ego to deal with. He doesn't deal with anything. He just lets it all loose. I love him for that.
Yeah, me too. Michael's great. So on that topic of, say, Michael Jacobs, anybody lately, Tom, or that you've studied, any sort of fellow pros that you have learned most from, that maybe that you're applying on the lesson tee these days? Who's been maybe a big influence on you sort of lately? We know your history with the Harmons, of course, but anybody in particular recently?
Well, I think Joseph Mayo's stuff's pretty cool. I mean, I joined his site there, Patreon, and been with his describing angle of attack, spin loft, and having people understand what hitting down really means in his viewpoint, from his viewpoint. So everything's from the instructor's viewpoint, and Joseph has been pretty good about sharing stuff lately about Victor. So it's interesting to see Victor take off and do these things, and have somebody, golf professional out there, sort of coaching him along the way, who's willing to share some of this stuff. So it's been pretty interesting the way he's done that. And I think Victor's been very appreciative, to the tune of about $21 million. It's not bad to make in a couple of weeks.
Some people I know you want to get in here, Alex. So just one quick follow-up. Some people, it just seemed like, have 9 lives. I mean, Joseph Mayo had a couple of hiccups there, it seemed like, with a couple of students that he worked with, but sort of rebounded with Victor. I wonder if you have any insight as to how Victor, sort of chose Joe Mayo to sort of align himself with, or anything like that. I mean, good for Joe and good for Victor.
The only thing I've heard is that Victor has a mutual friend with that Joseph knew, that they sort of got together that way. But one of the reasons I support Joseph Mayo right now is because he gives all his money from his site to an animal rescue hospital that he founded.
Wow, that's impressive.
So every dime he makes from this new site goes to that. trying to give people a
Interesting.
chance. Yeah.
He
Oh,
has
it's
an
great.
interesting story. He was working in Las Vegas. I was listening to a podcast of his, just trying to learn a little bit more about him a while back. And he started out. He was in Las Vegas, working at sort of like a PGA Superstore, and
Yep.
they had a TrackMan there, and he had a particular student he was working with multiple times, and the student could tell Joseph Mayo was really interested in TrackMan. And he said, "Do you own one?" And Joseph Mayo said, "No, I don't. They're, $25,000." So the student ended up purchasing it for him. He said, "Oh, you don't like? I'll buy it for you." And then it sort of took off from there. Joseph labeled himself the TrackMan Maestro and put out a
Right.
lot of cool videos when TrackMan was sort of first coming out, and really shed a lot of light on a lot of different aspects of what TrackMan was about. So
I think he's been humbled a little bit, and he's come back, and then more power to him. He's got
yeah,
good information to share. It's good. It's good for
yeah.
everybody. Share
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah. I'm all for it. If it
so-
costs me, it costs me.
So I'm going to jump in. I just want to also personally, let you know, Tom, we really appreciate you taking out the time of your day to be with us. For those that don't know, I got to work with you, under you, mentor under you for 8 years, and those were some of the best 8 years I've ever had in the golf business. And it's special for me to be able to call you my friend. So again, I want to thank you personally for taking the time out and being with us. And you mentioned MORAD. MORAD, I believe, stands for Mac O'Grady Research and Development. Did I goof that up?
No, that's correct.
Now, he never finished what he was going to do. Am I correct? He was supposed to come out with either a book or a video series. Where is MORAD?
MORAD exists in there's a fellow who is on YouTube, and it's the headstand guy. You ever talk to Kevin something? He does handstands. Oh yeah, he teaches
Really?
people how to do handstands and this.
I don't know.
He's one of Mac
him.
O'Grady's devotees, and
Sounds dangerous.
there was 2 books. One was going to be MORAD, and the other one was going to be The Prophet.
Yeah, where are the books?
What? Yeah.
Did he ever write the
He
book?
never published them. No.
No.
Tom, any
Nope.
connection between MORAD, and I'm sure there is, what's the connection between the golfing machine and MORAD? Did Mac get some of...
It's a lot of the information came from that. So in other words, Mac got his information from that and just developed his own system based on that, the P system that everybody uses now.
Yeah.
So everybody's indebted to him for that, in the sense of, okay, at least we can identify these positions. Everybody knows what P6 is, right? P7.5, P6, or whatever.
I've intentionally not learned that. But I hear what you're saying, and it can be like a common language. So it's an attempt at a common language, which is a good thing.
So, Tom, my first big question for you is, in the history of great teachers, and I can only go back so far. I know, Jack Grout taught Jack Nicklaus. Some people may not have ever heard of Jack Grout. I can't come up with a teacher of Bobby Jones. Do you know who taught Bobby Jones?
Stuart Maiden, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Stuart Maiden. And Alex Morrison taught Jack Grout.
Okay, great.
Alex Morrison, yeah.
This is why we have you on. So, obviously, in the evolution of man, we still have 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 fingers, 10 toes, if, all things, being normal at birth, right? And the golf clubs haven't changed all that much. They're all a certain length and a certain shape. Do you think that teachers have changed dramatically over the years, or does it all come back to, where's the ball going? How do we change that?
I think that it's where the ball goes, but I'll give you an example of what I think has been lost because of one thing, the ball. So the ball doesn't curve as much and it goes very high and it spins and does all this and they can control it. So what's been lost is the teaching of trajectory control. Very few teachers spend time teaching trajectory. Yet you'll see a Tommy Fleetwood, who everybody adores, and he's a trajectory fiend. Hogan was a trajectory guy. So the older players, when they had too much spin on the ball, they had to control the spin and they used trajectory to control the spin. And so that's gone out the window because they don't have to do that anymore. So very few teachers nowadays teach that. They teach it bomb and gouge, just hit as far as you can, decade golf, hit it as far as you can, get as close to the green. Don't worry about hitting fairways. So guys don't worry about hitting fairways. They hit it out of the rough, they hit wedges, they control the ball on the green, and it becomes a putting contest. I wish it would get a little bit back into the trajectory control where the person had to control the curve of his ball or the height of the golf ball when they hit certain shots. I think Jim McLean would be somebody who would agree with that, because he grew up in that era. Yes.
And so we need to change the ball, you think, Tom, to
I don't
accomplish
know
that?
what they're going to do, but if they made the ball, if they did something to the ball, you can't take the clubs out of there. The clubs are what they are now. They're going to hit the ball as far as they do. But I don't know what they can do if they can take a little bit of distance off. But even so, it's still going to be the longest guys. They're going to be the longest guys. I mean, you look at some guys out there in the European tour that Wilco there, he hits a 350, 360. Eventually, if he figures it out, he might win. I mean, look at what they're doing. I just watched a tennis match with Ben Shelton. He's averages when he's serving it, he's up in the 140s. That's unheard of. He hits 140 miles an hour on a tennis serve because of the racket, the ball, things like that.
One thing about it, though, is the disparity between, maybe it's closing a little bit with the young kids coming up, the next generation, but the disparity between how far the tour players and a guy like Wilco or the tennis players hit it and our everyday, golfers. It seems like that disparity is just so great now. Maybe back in the day, we were sort of in reach of, say, like Curtis Strange's 7-iron. We could sort of relate, back in our day as far as like what we hit it and what they hit it. And now it's just gone. There's just a huge gap.
I don't think you can ever reverse that, but see, it will keep you busy, it'll keep Alex busy, it'll keep me busy because the average player can't hit it that far. So we're always going to be necessary for them, where the other guys, I think, have some of the longer players lose touch with instruction. It's more about how far I can hit it. And all they're concerned about is putting, chipping, pitching, because that's all that matters to them. They can hit wedges. I mean,
hitting it that far is such a gift in a lot of cases. They don't know. They're not quite sure how they do it. They've just always been able to hit it far is probably the answer you get from some of the players that hit it a long way.
But you look at Scotty Scheffler, he's number one in reg, right? And he can hit the ball. He's a great iron player. So people are still respected because they're great iron players. Fleetwood, Scheffler, Justin Thomas, players like that are still respected as great iron players. But is that going to go away? I mean, because they don't really hit. When did they ever hit a 5 or 6 iron or a 4 iron? Except on a long par 3.
Not even into par 5s anymore.
Right.
On the whole. Speaking of Scotty Scheffler, Alex and I go back and forth sometimes. Any commentary on the footwork? I think people would be interested to hear. What do you make of Scotty Scheffler's footwork?
Well, Scotty Scheffler's footwork, I believe, is caused by the fact that, one, he's very tall. And as he swings, he leans left. So he's very leftward leaning as he takes the club back and starts down. Now, he could do one of two things. He could bend his right knee more to get down to the ball more, or he can shift his back leg behind him, a la hockey guy or something like that, to create a a sideways bending that he does to get down to his iron shots. So
Norman?
he's so leftward leaning that he has to find a way to slow his lower body down a little bit, because if he kept shifting, he'd be so far past it'd be a joke. So he shoves his right leg behind him to slow him down and actually give him a counterweight to be able to go back and get the ball. So he uses it, I think, in a counterweight situation where he throws it behind his left leg so that he can't keep shifting to the left. And it counterbalances what he's doing. Yeah. That's what I think.
Norman,
he's got an unbelievable counterbalance.
Do you feel like Norman did it a little bit too with his footwork?
Oh, Norman did it tremendously. Yeah.
Right. Kind of, similar, but not quite as much as Scotty.
Well, you look at Norman. Norman was a slider.
Right.
Slid to the left. And people who slide to the left have to have a counterbalance, because if you keep sliding, you can't hit the ball. So they've got to counterbalance it somehow and get down to the golf ball and release the club. And that's how Scotty does it. That's how Greg Norman did it. And other players have done that. I mean, in the 40s and 50s, you saw some players play that way a little bit.
Tom Cavicchi, I think, was another one.
Exactly.
But good call, Joe.
But I know, right? But on the flip side, you see some videos posted. Good players, say a Padraig Harrington posted one at Bay Hill that comes to mind, of the feet going the other way through impact. So you also see the left foot go more left, and I want to say in those videos in Kyle Berkshire, I've been focused a little bit on the left, but I have to assume the right would come. So they're doing a little bit of an opposite thing. So it can be tough to sort of
but in a way
understand.
If you think about it, they're trying to do the same thing.
Okay, one you're seeing the action, one you're seeing the reaction. Would that be fair way to say it?
So in other words, when you take Padraig Harrington, he's trying not to spin to the left. He's trying to force his body to go to the right.
Yeah.
Because he wants.
And then the reaction's back to the left.
Right. The reaction's back to the left, but he's trying to jump out to the right so he can get around and spin around the golf ball. While Michael Jacobs trying to get him to rotate his chest as fast as he can. Mm-hmm. Right. He's trying to get that.
Michael wants you to push forward.
Yeah, exactly. He's trying to get him to push. So that's the way Padraig's body does it. So everybody's body does it differently. And if Padraig leaned left like that, he'd have the same problem as Scheffler. See, it's all matchups. I mean, let's face it. That's all golf is for you, me, or anybody else who teaches is what's their matchup? How can I get them to hit the ball? That's the biggest thing. So in my thought process is that instruction goes way in one direction, and all of a sudden it gets about to the end range of doing something, and then it sort of starts to self-correct. And I think we're at that phase right now where the golf instruction is going to start to self-correct in the sense of, what Genk has taught and what some other players have taught about that left side movement and everything else. I think they're going to see that they're doing it too much, and they're going to bring it back towards the center, and you're going to see another level of a thought pattern there. I can see that on the horizon very quickly within the next couple of years of more directed towards, believe it or not, hand and arm action.
Okay.
Yeah. Where that'll be taught in a little bit more. So in other words,
I'm all for that. I mean, the hands and arms, they affect a lot what the body's doing anyway. Would you agree? What the hands and arms
definitely.
do?
Oh, definitely. And but some people don't educate them anymore. They're not educated. They'll assume a strong grip, and they won't understand pronation, supination, how the hands affect things, how things take place, and then all of a sudden they get stuck. And I see a lot of players get stuck in a very quick motion to the left with a slightly stronger grip, and they can't play. They're underneath the ball. They can't play. They can hit it 320 yards, but they got a high right miss and a low left miss. Good luck. May God bless. They can't play. They can't play from there. And so what's happening is that's going to end up causing people to reassess how much we should how much we should teach these things and to what extreme, and what's the balance of everything. I think that's where teaching is going right now is where's the balance in what we're doing.
Tom, can you take us onto your lesson T real quick? And sorry, Alex, I might have jumped in before you. Hold the thought. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Can you take us onto your lesson T and just tell us a little bit about what you're seeing? What are the trends? I know everybody's different and everybody has their own sort of, challenges and things, but any particular trends that you're seeing, anything in particular that you find yourself teaching a lot? Like you mentioned, are you teaching a little bit more with the arms and hands now? Are you teaching, we see a lot of excess lower body movement. Are you teaching more stability with the lower body? What kinds of themes are coming up on the lesson T day after day for you?
All right. So if you have somebody who took lessons in the 70s, 80s, 90s, a la Curtis Strange, all those other Paint Stewart and everything else, those people, as they get older, they can't move as they used to move. So what they do is they get stuck too much underneath the ball and they become flip hookers or blockers, and they can't quite move the way they used to move. And so they suffer when they get into their late 50s, early 60s, and even later. They can't generate the speed they used to generate because of the way they used to think and the way they used to practice. And then when you get into Tiger's era, and starting with Tiger, and you go up through the 2000s and 2010 and that, and you get into Gankus and all this other stuff, they're talking about the quickness of the hips and everything else. And so now you've got a generation where those guys, the first group is stuck under, and the second group is trying to shower it out, and they get stuck under. So we've got high right, we got high right, low left. Now, I think golf is taught backwards, and I'd have to get into that. So I think golf is taught where we teach people to try and do more, but if you taught them correctly, they could do less and get better. So they start originally when they learn is they swing, in a sense, they were always taught to swing to right field, to second base, and everything else. Okay, so they do that, and as a result, as they go through, in order to get the ball to come back, they have to do more. Whereas if a person swings on plane, down the line, or in a little bit as they come through and learn that way, they can do less because they don't longer have to release, and they don't have to turn the club face over their arms over as much. So they don't have to sort of do as much with their body and do as much with their hands and arms. So I'm of the belief that we will get into do much less, do as little as you can and swing the golf club and then build it up from there, rather than trying to get the body so quick and everything else that they neglect to understand how to create the correct matchups. I know that's long-winded and everything else, but it's basically, I think we're going to go back to where we get the body to quiet down a little bit and we swing the club, and then we build it up on both sides, making each one equal. That's all. That's what I see.
Interesting.
It's the quickness. I mean, I got this one kid, he's coming for a lesson tomorrow. I mean, he's got to have the quickest hips in the world, but when he's off timing, it's like he can't find his ball. He can't find it. And these kids all go through this. They make big numbers. Right. They make 6s and 8s, and they just hit it all over the place. They can't keep it in place sometimes, trying to hit it as far as they can.
Yeah, is that a deliberate attempt on his part, do you think, to turn really quick, or is it something pretty instinctive?
Well, I think it's internet is all that way. If you go back and you look at the original, the origin of it was Clay Ballard and players like guys like that who come up, and then Gankus and everything else, and they're taught to just move a certain way as fast as you can, blah 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 blah, and it multiplies. And so in the internet, it depends on what you click on as to what's happening here, right?
Yeah,
depends on what you click on.
I don't do a lot of clicking on the internet, but I understand people. I think it's great that people are interested to where they want to learn. but it's there's questionable information out there.
Yeah, I think it's more entertainment. I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of there's a good site in Arizona I've been following lately. These guys, and they have some good information. They have
Yeah.
some good stuff, and they're starting to touch on some things that are interesting.
Mhm.
And you get into it, and we've been in communication with them, and they understand where we're coming from. We understand where they're coming from, and there's a synergy there that, hey, I got it. Here's what you guys are thinking. Here's what we're thinking. So I think the more we come away with that, and so in other words, if you put 20 guys in a room and they don't kill one another, they might come up with some ideas,
Yeah.
where they're trying to outshout one another.
I know, if we can put our collective egos aside, it seems like we're competing among teachers instead of providing good information for our students.
Good thought right there. I like that thought. I mean, I don't like it, but I hear what you're saying there. There's too much. Yeah. Let's, there's plenty of people out there who need lessons. There's plenty of people. There's more than, so I think the biggest problem now is other than hitting the ball is that I played medalist last year and I played another course and I asked the caddies, can any of these people chip the ball? He said, no, members can't pitch and chip. They can't pitch and chip. They don't know how to pitch and chip. Now, is that agronomy, skill, or what is it?
Well, I don't think people understand that. And I know Alex is tired of hearing me mention Michael Jacobs, but Michael. But he's my guy. What can I say?
Yeah, I agree.
So and he's got Dr. Stephen Nesbitt behind him, and he's a brilliant person in golf. And there aren't many, because the brilliant people are busy tackling bigger questions and problems in the world than the golf swing.
I agree.
But so we're lucky to have Dr. Stephen Nesbitt and other people like him. But the one quick thing I wanted to say is I think, and I was down with Michael a few weeks ago, and I just confirmed it because I had a question from a student and I asked him directly. And I don't think people understand that even on the short chip shots that the club curves. I think they're thinking that they're trying to swing the club too straight, but just this is maybe an oversimplified answer, but they're swinging the club a little too straight back, straight through when they get in close, and they have to understand that the club curves around a little bit through impact in order to get that club head to the bottom of the swing and onto the ball. I'd say with poor chipping, players are hitting behind,
right?
I would say is a pretty common thing. So they're not curving it in toward them enough as when they chip.
I agree with you 100%. 100%. It's like you take Victor Hovland. He's now playing a wedge, from what I understand, that has 17 degrees of bounce.
Really?
So that he can hit down and not dig.
Mm-hmm.
And David Adele has been doing that for years. His wedges are at the back of the wedge are like 20 degrees of bounce.
Interesting.
So guys are doing it differently. David Adele is a different animal as a club maker and doing things like that. And from what I understand, that in watching the videos that Joseph has put out with Victor, he hits 10 to 12 down and doesn't take a divot
because of the bounce.
Yeah. And and the way Joseph talks about lowering the center of mass is a little different. Joseph's got a little different thought on that, and it works pretty well. So I just think that we go down rabbit holes sometimes, and it's tough to get out unless you got a ladder, rope ladder, or you got someone you can depend on to bounce ideas off of. That's why I think it's important to bounce your ideas off. You might think something's totally off the charts brilliant, and somebody else goes, well, did you ever think about it this way? And that's what I like to do, is to just, I've got a fellow who comes in every day. He's a mechanical engineer. He's about a 4 handicapper, but we discuss things every day based on, what do you think about this mechanically? he grew up as a child riding a unicycle. Do you think he's got balance? He's got balance.
Yeah,
Okay. He can
sure.
do things. This guy can do things. And you go, where does he get that? From his past experiences. Yeah. So I think a lot of this stuff with people is exploring. Okay, Alex, before we get into anything, what's going on?
What do you mean?
What's going on with you down there in Texas?
What? No, I'm collecting all the questions I have for you. You can't mess me up now. I've stored them.
All right, fire a good question
I've got
at
several
Tom.
things for Tom. I've been
Throw it in the mix.
Patient. Gosh, I'll try to go in order going back. I think Victor Hovland, I don't think his swing was ever a problem, but the stats could prove me wrong. I think his short game was always lacking, and he'd always say, or others would say, his wedges around the green aren't very good, and he's losing a lot of strokes to the field, let's say 30 yards and in. So I would just say whoever is his short game coach needs a big high five. I think his long game coach is cruising. He's always hit it really well, but I think Victor's short game has improved a lot, and I think that's helped him. It's like anything. When you're not afraid to miss a green because you can get it up and down, you hit more greens.
100%.
So I don't know if his short game coach is the same as his long game coach. Forgive me, but his short game coach, whoever is working with him, has done a great job, and I think we're all seeing the effects of that. So good on him for fixing his short game. I would start to say it first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Joseph May. That's Joseph Mayo, the short game.
Yeah, that's Joseph Mayo.
Do you feel like his? Does he work with him at putting also, Tom?
He works with all his short game, bunkers, everything.
Okay, I mean that guy. I tell you what, from 30 yards and in, my money's on Victor Hovland. That guy putts amazing, and his wedge game is really kind of up there with the best in the world, I think, at this point.
Oh, I totally agree with you there.
Where else was I going to go?
Alex,
Rewind.
Alex, go ahead. Do you have something already?
Don't do it, Joe. Don't
go
do
ahead.
it.
Go.
Don't do it.
Go.
As far as watching some of these players on tour, as a coach, who was the biggest guy we used to see, years ago, and we'd say, how is this guy on tour and no one's changed his swing? There's probably two. Jim Furyk, who I think's father was a PGA professional.
Yeah.
And, John Daly, I would say had a little bit, it was just long, but people would say, well, that's never going to last over time. But of course it did. You have Jim Furyk, I was just watching a slow-mo video, Tom, of she's a Canadian on the Henderson, Brooke Henderson.
Yeah.
Right.
And I to me, it's like her back is going to break. I just don't know what year. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's just so strong that she can swing, stop her lower body, and not have any back trauma. As a coach, I would say, well, I would probably ruin her because I'm going to change what she's doing to be, I would just say, more efficient and more kinder to the body. I don't think she's moving the way you would move ideally, but her hands are awesome, and she gets through the ball, and she knows where her ball's going, and she's the top player on the LPGA Tour. Joe and I talked about, and I hope I don't mess up his last name, Thor Bjornsson, Michael?
Thor Bjornsson, yeah.
Apparently, he's got a back issue now. Now, I've watched his
that was
swing
from working out.
Was it really?
Working out. Yeah.
Well, I've watched his swing I watched his swing in slow motion, and it's kind of like, well,
you hurt your back.
If it was from swinging, it wouldn't shock me. His motion does not look like it's kind on the body And as a coach, do you step in and change these things, or do you just say, you know what, it's working, I'm going to let them do it? So if you got top players coming to you that have a little bit of, I guess we'd say, funk in their swing, or it doesn't look so athletic, how do you know when to change or when not to change, Tom?
You don't. That's just it.
You don't.
So you have to have a discussion with them as to what their aspirations are. And, do you want to play college golf? Do you want to do this? You want to do that? You want to play at a higher level? How would you do it? Okay. So I'll give you a kid up here. You were around the time I was teaching Matty Parzial before he went to Hester. Well, actually, he went to college and then he came back, worked with Hester. And then he discovered how to drive the ball when he was in his 20s. And he won the U.S. Mid-Amateur, played in the Masters, made the cut, played in the U.S. Open, made the cut. Because at that point, I think his body slowed down and his club caught up and he was able to hit a driver, and he can hit a driver to this day. And before that, he had trouble hitting a driver. And so I think that everybody has a shelf life. Is Jordan Spieth's shelf life over? Is Rory McIlroy's shelf life over as the major champion? He's won 4. He hasn't won anything in 10 years. Spieth hasn't won anything in 5 or 6 years. When does the run end? And when does it? So in other words, okay, Nicklaus was consistent throughout, didn't have too many droughts. Tiger had a couple of droughts in there because of swing changes and things like that. But if you took a look at Tiger when he was going through 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, you would have thought he'd win 25 majors. And he won 15. Okay? Why? What happened? He wanted to change his swing. He went to Haney, got it laid off, changed his whole perception as to how to swing the club. If you look at him 2000, 2001, I don't think you've ever seen a better golf swing than Tiger threw the ball with unadulterated speed. And then after that point, he got a little lost and he won majors, but he wasn't quite the same. And like I say, what's the shelf life of a person? What's the shelf life of a player? Who knows?
Yeah, we're in a sport that our shelf life is a lot longer than other sports, but then again, there is still that shelf life.
Well, look at Langer, look at what he's done later on, because he maintained. Here's a guy who's been through the yips 3 times, right?
Incredible.
So you made my point already. We're going to the long putter.
Oh no, we're going to the broom.
Outlawed, and we would never hear of Bernhard Langer if he had a standard putter. That's what I say.
Okay, now I'm studying the yips, and I have this thought process, and I'm trying to develop this with the sports psychologist. And we would come on and do a podcast with you, and it would be this. Is there such a thing as trauma in golf? You get in a car. So in other words, you're coming down the 18th hole.
It doesn't matter.
Oh, wait. Let me finish. You're coming down
Survival of the fittest.
What's that?
Survival of the fittest.
No. Wait.
If
no, let's not make us.
You're off the tour. Bye-bye. Next guy comes on and he wins. Langer would disappear. Glover would disappear. They would just be gone. That's just the way it is, Tom.
Well, I'll somewhat disagree with you there that Langer solved it without the long putter, and he won his majors with the arm lock. Okay.
What about the trauma, Tom, that you were?
How old was he?
Oh, he's in his probably 30s.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So
in other words, you're in a car accident, right?
Yeah.
One of our bosses, your old friend, Greg Simeone, was in a car wreck. He won't drive very long distances now. He gets in a car, it's traumatic. Okay.
Well,
now,
I'm sorry.
You stand on the 18th hole, and you're winning the U.S. Open, and you're Phil Mickelson,
Yeah.
and you hit it in the tent at 18 at Wingfoot.
Rory
Oh,
at
yeah.
Augusta. Rory at Augusta.
Yes,
Number
and you
10.
make 6, and all of a sudden, it's in your head, and it's
Okay.
trauma, just like an accident would be, or any traumatic thing that you
Sure.
it's called scar tissue, and you
Yep.
acquire it as you go along. Now, if there are ways to attack this, then can you do that in golf and help people out? So
With a
we're
legal
trying to,
size putter, yes. I think just like the driver has a length that you cannot go above. That's as long as a driver can be in competition, yes?
right,
And there should be a limit to the putter, and it shouldn't go all the way to someone's sternum. And what you're doing is great, but it needs to be connected to a standard putter that has a length that nobody can exceed. I feel like there's been enough evidence that Bernhard Langer at times does attach his hand to his sternum. Now, I know, calling someone a cheat is not, but, I just don't think there should be a putter that long. And I think if you just watch Lucas Glover, who I've talked about in previous episodes, and I can't speak enough about Lucas Glover as a person. I think he's just such a great guy. I've gotten to meet him through, Dick Harmon at the Harmon Golf Club. But what did switching to that putter do to his game instantly at the end of this season? What did it do? Turned him around 180 degrees. We know he's a great ball striker. Doesn't miss a fairway. Great with his irons. What was he having problems with, Tom? He couldn't make a putt. He had the yips.
Well, there was an incredible video. I don't know if you saw it, Tom, that they showed on on one of the telecasts. They had a split screen of Lucas Glover putting the previous year with his standard length putter, and then his stroke with the long putter. Did you happen to see that?
yes.
And I mean, I'm with you, Alex. Lucas Glover, great guy. We're not here to disparage Lucas Glover by any means.
Not at all.
But when I say he almost missed the ball with his putter, he hit it off. It was a Scotty Cameron. He had that red dot right on the heel. He hit it off the red dot.
Right.
Wait,
That was to shoot 60.
was it? Whoa! Wait a minute. Time out. So he had made some putts.
He missed at Greensboro. He missed the putt for 59.
I didn't realize that was
little
to shoot
putt
60.
he missed to shoot 60. He shot 61.
Oh,
So don't say he can't putt. That day he shot 61
Thank you.
doing that.
All right. Thank you for
what was he ranked in the what was his world ranking beginning of the year?
I'm sure it wasn't any good.
Plus 300, I believe. And now we're talking about he should have been a Ryder Cup pick. I mean, think about that.
Tom, suffice to say, if Alex was USGA president for a day, the long putter would not exist. It would go away.
Yeah.
He and Keegan
Bradley would have an argument.
All right,
Gone. Many
Tom,
years ago.
with the scar tissue, I mean, that's what all this talk about presence. In the present moment, there is no past or future.
Right.
I know that's an oversimplification, but the more we can get into that present mindset, whether it's through breathing or whether it's, noticing a tree or a bird or whatever it is to snap ourselves out of that mode. But I know that's hard, as you can't imagine, stepping onto the tee in that same situation, having had it not go well the previous time. But are you, with your research thus far, are you confident that that phrase scar tissue has always kind of like bothered me a little bit. Are you, with your research, is that a real thing, or can that be sort of eliminated?
What it is this, and what, my son, he suffers from PTSD. So scar tissue is a real thing.
Okay. Okay.
It's a mental condition. Basically, what happens is you internalize trauma and you hide it in your body in some place. It's basically body based. So trauma is not just head based, it's body based. And so some place in your body has tremendous trauma, and it might be in your thumbs, it might be in your hands, it might be in your back, it's someplace. And what it does is, and what they're doing is, the funny thing is, one of the things they're working with is psychedelics, because one of the easiest ways to get rid of trauma is to use this type of psychedelic drugs where you can experience a different kind of revelation through what you'd feel being guided by a psychiatrist or something like that. They are experimenting with wonderful things, trying to help people who have been damaged. And damage doesn't mean that you've been damaged physically, you've been damaged mentally or traumatized.
Can you give specifics
some
on
way.
the drugs?
What's that?
Are you able to give specifics on the psychedelic drugs you're talking about, or not really?
It's the funny thing is, the guy who did it, he's about 75, 74 years old, and he experimented with them, and I forget the guy's name. I'll have to get back to you on that. But what it is they're finding different ways, different pathways. So I'll give you one other thing. That's one way, psychedelic. Now there's a fellow right now, his guy's name is Izzy, Izzy, Justice. And Izzy Justice is a consultant and a psychologist for corporations. And he's done, because he dabbles in golf too. He's done 11,000 EEGs, EKGs, whatever it is in the brain, EEGs, I think it is in the brain. And so he studied the electrical activity of people when they're putting. And he's come up with some thought process. For one thing, he said, very few people can hold the target in their mind, putting, chipping very well. They get distracted by making a stroke, watching the club, watching the ball, doing other things where they need to learn to hold the target. And he said that the most useless thing in a putting stroke is practice strokes, because there's no ball involved and there's no real skill. The only skill is hitting the ball with the club. And he said, the only thing you should ever work on is understanding how to hold and you'd have to study your stuff a little bit, how to hold the target in your mind longer and hit the ball in the center of the face. He said, those are the two things. He said that in all his studies, and these 11,000, he only works with athletes, is about 30% of his work. He does a lot of work with corporate stuff. So he's studying people who sell, people who, have low self-esteem in their corporate settings and things like that. So he's very tuned into what people suffer and through, and how their electrical activity in their brain is going crazy. And he said the ability, you mentioned it before, Joe, how to calm down your brain is one of the most important things you can do, is silence. So if you've ever played one, you played well. You're a good player, Joe. You experience that sometimes when you play, right? You go through periods where you go, I got it. And other periods where you go, what just happened? What just happened?
Sure. No, you feel a lot of different things. I was thinking about that, lately, even practicing. You do store a lot of things. You feel a lot of different sensations in your body, and it's a good thing to learn how to deal with that. The more we can learn, I think that's another sort of frontier, in a sense. I mean, we talk about it in the mental sense, but you're talking about how that's internalized a little bit more in the body, which is interesting.
Yeah, when they talk about yips, I'll give you an example. I didn't understand this about yips until recently. I didn't know the yips are actually your body trying to fix you while you're swinging. So in other words, you come in and you know the club face is open, and at the last minute your brain goes, no, you got to do it this way. So you yip it to try and do the right thing. So you're actually trying to do the right thing, and your body's trying to help you do the right thing, even though you think it's the wrong thing. The yip feels wrong, but the yip is actually a positive thing.
I love it.
With a bad connotation.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's super interesting.
Yeah. I never understood that before until it was explained to me.
The putting coach you're referring to, I didn't catch his name, who said he doesn't think that practice strokes are useful. What's his name again?
Izzy, Izzy, Justice.
Can this guy make a putt on his own?
You know, I went through this the other day. Wait. Okay, I went through this the other day with somebody who said, well, if you can't play, you teach. And John Wooden didn't really play very high-level basketball. He was a pretty good coach. Red Auerbach didn't play basketball. A lot of good teachers on the PGA Tour didn't play high-level golf, but Jim McClain is a high-level golfer, but he never made it to that high level, and he still teaches. So being able to do it is one thing. Explain it is another.
I would say this. I think you're 100% correct. But a lot of times I like to always go back to, when I was a phys ed teacher. I think you kind of remember my background.
Yeah, right.
Some people on the podcast, they may not know I was a phys ed teacher. And, so it's like whenever I wanted to learn anything, Tom, at any age, I just sought out someone who I thought perceived as to be great at it, and I mimicked or copied what they did. Kids will sometimes copy their father. I think that's kind of how Phil Mickelson started. He watched his dad, and Phil Mickelson's right-handed, as we know. Right. But he started to swing left-handed as a mirror image of his dad, as kids do. So I would always look back at, does Tiger Woods take practice strokes? Check. Did Seve take practice strokes? I'm actually not sure if that's the answer, Tom. You might know it. But I would look back at the greatest putters in history. Faxon, I'm pretty sure he took practice strokes. Crenshaw, yes or no, Tom?
I don't know.
Everybody's taken practice strokes. It seems like now a newer thing. I notice it a lot on the LPGA tour that they're not going away from practice strokes. But
if the greatest putters all did it, if this guy is not an elite putter and he's telling people he doesn't think it matters, I would really love to know why he's saying that. Because a lot of guys did it.
And it depends on why you would do it. Did Tiger do it to practice his stroke or to get relaxed?
We'd have to sit him down. I don't know.
Right.
Did Nicklaus take practice strokes?
I don't know.
Did Palmer? Who are the greatest putters in history, Tom? Who's your top five? Who's your Mount Rushmore of putting?
Well, Tiger, of course. Nicklaus, of course.
Tiger.
Nicklaus. Trevino. Not an unknown, but he could really putt. Trevino was a great putter. Bobby Locke.
Give me two more.
Bobby Locke. Yeah. And the guy who wrote the book, Horton Smith.
So, Mr. Rocha, Joey, we need to do a rewind section. We're going to look up those five, and I want to find out whether they took practice strokes or did not. Just for my own knowledge.
Well, a lot of times we can learn from both. We can learn obviously from the players who do it, but we can also learn a lot from those who don't do it. And we do welcome people who don't do it because they have just a different perspective. That's kind of like Dr. Stephen Nesbitt. He thought one of his advantages was not knowing the golf swing because he didn't have any preconceived ideas of what it was, and he's coming more from the science background.
I like that.
Mechanical engineering background. So he just presents this is what it is. This is what's happening. Now it's now it's up to you to apply it. But so it is interesting. No, it's I think we can learn from both for sure. The players, the people who do it, like you were talking about, Alex, and then the people who study it, like you were mentioning, Tom. So
all right,
yeah,
let me get back to one. I'll ask you guys this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with your students in the sense of planning? In other words, what do you set forth for them? So in your mind, you look at them, you've got them for the first hour, and then you're asking questions, and they say they want to become a better ball striker, a better player, a better golfer. What is your perception of somewhat of time that it would take? Procedures that you would use so that the average player understands where you're coming from?
You want to go
start,
first?
Joe, or you want to
Sure.
start?
You know what? Go for it, Alex.
So from your question, it sounds like you're referring to juniors. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I'm talking about
anybody.
Anybody.
Who's
a lady who's
game,
a 20 handicapper wants to become a 15 handicapper.
Yeah. Well, you probably could already guess what I'm going to say first. Is you give them a good grip and you give them an understanding of how to swing a golf club. Now, it's not just put your hands on any old way. I think you've always said to me, you were one of the teachers that you've seen that maybe put most effort into putting someone's hands on the way I think they should be. So I've had students make many swings without a ball. I think sometimes the ball is the big disruptor. I think putting their hands on correctly, feet together, making things very simple for them to accomplish. The worst thing we can do as instructors is to frustrate students early. Give them tasks to do that they can't perform, where they have negative self-speech and talk, and I'm no good at it. So if you put a club in someone's hands the way I think all good teachers would do, and you just have them do simple tasks to start, brush the ground. You and I used to teach on indoor mats, and I've used a lot of painter's tape in my day. I put a piece of painter's tape down, and I just have them swing and move the tape forward. So I don't use words like lift the tape. I say we're gonna start the blade at the edge of the tape. We're gonna smush the tape or move the tape forward. You can do that with your feet together. They can do it. They start to build confidence and belief in themselves. Then you start to put whatever you want on that tape at the beginning. And that goes forward as the tape goes forward. And they get confidence. As long as a coach, we are doing everything from you walk before you run, before you sprint, and we keep their feelings and their confidence in mind. As long as you're not asking players to do things that they just can't do from step one, you're going to build the player's confidence. You're going to build their ability to do a task, whether it's move the tape forward. Is there going to be some extension to the arms and club as you do that? Yes, naturally. You film it. You applaud them. You show them how good they're doing. You don't have to say, hey, you need to extend. You need to not hang back. All those things, they're struggling with, usually because we add a ball too quickly. So for me, when I have players that really want to progress, I give them low tasks that they can achieve, build confidence, build their ability to swing and move naturally versus putting them in positions that are not natural and tough to be in. And then when they can't do it, they start to feel bad about themselves. So I've had even really good players use the tape or do certain drills. Feet together. Feet together is probably a drill we've used for 100 years, Tom. And then there's a drill called the flamingo drill, where you pull your right foot back and off to the side. And the ball position really is just inside the left foot, and the weight is on the left foot. And you just have them rotated swing, and they're able to find the low point of their swing easier than if they separate their feet. And we talk about weight shift and load. So get them with their feet together, get them in the drill where it's kind of a single leg, have them make a lot of brushes, use tape, and build their confidence. And then once you add the ball, they're amazed at how good they could do, but they're swinging more in a natural state versus thinking about my right arm, now I got to come down, I got to keep the lag. That stuff doesn't work for a lot of players, in my opinion. Joe?
I agree. Good explanation. I like it. I like what the steps. I like that. It's good. Yeah, because you can never start too simple.
You build them up. I always tell them, if you look at the tallest building in your city, that was only possible because the foundation was solid enough to build that up. If I can't get the foundation, then I'm not a good teacher.
Yeah, I agree with the grip too.
You know,
Thank you, Tom.
That book,
you got one of the best grips in the history of golf.
Who does?
Tom.
You do.
I know I do.
You.
I have a great grip.
I know you do.
I've always had a good grip.
Be proud of your grip. Be proud of that grip, Tom.
I've always had a good grip
model more than once, Tom.
That's right.
You know, one thing I read, I know we're coming up on time too, and we don't want to take too much of your time, but you know, one book, one line in a book that stands out is that Zen and the Art of Archery book. And one thing they talked about is patience on the part of the student and teacher. And when there's impatience on either side, you're not in a real ideal state of learning, you know. So Tom, actually, one thing you mentioned on the last podcast that I've jokingly, seriously, but in a joking way, I put it to my students is, you mentioned something, a study was done about our ability to improve 1% to 2%, if we're lucky, I think you said, per week. And I joke to my students, I'm trying to make you 80% better in an hour. You know, so I have to, I guess the challenge for me is my own impatience. I think I'm starting to see how things sort of, the cool thing, I guess, with my teaching right now is like, if I mention one or two or multiple things, now I can see how they all sort of relate to one another. So I don't feel like I'm confusing my students as much, because I'm able to sort of, okay, we've talked about, you know, one thing can lead to the next thing, can lead to the next thing, right? But then I'm able to sort of say, like, okay, we're talking about the same sort of thing here. You know, the grip led to the straight back, which led to the hang back, you know, whatever it is, like you said, the matchups. But it just takes a long time to be good, and it takes consistent, persistent, consistent. You need an engaged student. Everybody's different. Not a cop-out answer, but everybody's different. I've had, you know, I've had different things happen. So it's like, once you think you have the answer, you don't. There's really no answer to it. So like I would say, like one of my sort of success stories, if you will, is a player who came to me 3 weeks before his high school tryout, and his dad and him said, we want to take a lesson every day until the tryout. And he's a baseball player, really hadn't played a ton of golf. They came every day for 3 weeks, and he ended up making his high school team, is now playing college golf. So in that case, that persistent everyday building on lesson, question, answer question, it worked. Now I also have a student now who's coming once a week for the last year or so, but he's not as engaged. He's a young kid. He's a junior player, but he's not as engaged in it. So we're kind of, his parents want him to be there, but we haven't really discussed it, but we're actually going to go on the golf course now because we've been on the range. But we're at kind of like a standstill a little bit because I see what I'd like him to do, but he's not really willing to change. So it's everybody's so different. And yeah, I think patience is required. A big deal of patience is required on both the teachers and students' part, which again, I joke to students like, patience is not one of our American, to put it in, kind of like in general terms, like as Americans, we're not the most patient bunch. I know I'm stereotyping, but it's okay because I'm just saying, and that's a good thing. I mean, we want things, and we're used to achieving, and we have a lot of high achievers. I never will dumb down. One of my kind of things is I will never like dumb down. I would rather be accused of overcomplicating, which I don't want to do. I like simple, but I'd rather be accused of overcomplicating than dumbing it down. So I think golfers are smart people. They're high achievers, and they want to do it quick. They want to be good quick, and I want them to be quick too. But I think we have to be realistic.
I agree. So it's a viewpoint. Everybody's got their viewpoint. But as long as you have the interest of the student at heart, you're gonna make them a little bit better. You're gonna make them a little bit better each time. And I think it's a relationship that develops over a period of time that you just get more and deeper into, and you ask different questions and you get different answers, and you make progress through being honest with one another. I'm very honest with my students.
And Tom, like you tell them straight up.
Yep.
What will you tell them? Can you give us an example, like anything in particular come to mind, or?
I think people don't understand what our job is, in the sense of, I tell people they're much more talented than they think they are. They've just never been able to have it pulled out of them correctly and realize it. That's all. My job is to just keep pulling it out of them until they see that they can do these things or do this. And I get a little pissed off at them when they say, I can't do that. That's bullshit. Oh, sorry. But that's crap because
sure. You said you were being honest.
They have to understand that they have this innate ability. They're human beings who were taught to move, can do things. They just need to understand it a little bit better and relate to it. And all of a sudden they can do it.
You know, Dr. Mark Bull.
Yeah. So yeah.
Dr. Mark Bull. So how would you classify Dr. Mark Bull? Is he a physio, mental coach? He's sort of a little bit of everything out there on more the European tour side of things than the US, but
yeah, I was down in Charlottesville with them for 2 days. He and Dr. Kwan and this other guy, Dr. Michael K., who is a brilliant physio.
One thing that sorry to interrupt, Tom.
No, it's fine.
I just one thing that Mark Bull said that is interesting. He's like, teachers are supposed to ask questions, not give answers.
Yes.
So, and another
hard
thing
to do.
I know, and it takes a lot of creativity on the teacher's part to sort of ask those questions and not give the answers. And then another thing, just on a more sort of personal level, like that you mentioned, that the Harmons, was it Butch or maybe Claude, was that whole thing about teaching people how to play golf, not golf to people.
Right.
So
fine.
like part of what I thought maybe you were going to say, and I think you mean as well when you say you're honest, is just like sometimes even just part of the lesson. I don't know, would you agree? Just to kind of get to know the person a little more.
Right.
Sometimes we're like, personally, but I think I can say collectively, we're so into, we want to get we want to get the swing. I look at people sometimes too much as a golf swing, not as the person, So maybe those times that we get a little stuck, maybe we can default to, getting to know them a little bit more as a person.
Well, what I do is I find out their personal interest, like this one woman today, Diana, and I had her. What we talk about is tennis, the whole lesson. She'll hit golf shots and we'll relate it to golf, but we talk about, well, what'd you think about this match, or what'd you think about that match? Another guy I talk books to. What have you read lately? What's that?
She's gonna be. Golf's a racket sport. If she's a tennis gal, she's going to be a great golfer.
Good. She's good already.
They're both racket sports.
Oh, I agree. It's just a smaller racket.
It's a smaller racket.
And is it moving?
Tom, real quick. The first time I left my headlights on too long and my car wouldn't start. How did I know how to hook up the jumper cables? What do you think?
How do you know?
My dad
told me. That's who told me.
There you go. Someone held your hand and said, "Hey, son, get over here. I'm going to show you something." Right?
Yep.
So,
until he's
to
been spending some time in Texas.
We say, why are these people? Why don't they know how to chip and hit basic pitches? No one's held their hand. Come over here, son. I'm going to show you. I think most golf professionals probably get to the short game too late, and they're definitely not teaching chipping enough. I think as golf pros, if we got into chipping earlier, I think it would benefit the student personally, but I think it would benefit their progression as how they can learn how to make a ball go somewhere towards a target. Some coaches would putt first, then chip, then pitch, then irons, then driver. That's fine. But, why are amateurs so bad at chipping and hitting small pitches? No one's grabbing their hand. No one's saying, "Come over here, son. I'm going to show you." I think that's lost. And I know if you watch the PGA Tour, most people aren't chipping. I mean, chipping is a very small, everyone hits the high lob or wedges. Not a lot of chip shots. In Europe, I think they chip a little bit more. But I do think chipping is almost really just underused. What do you think about that?
You know who taught Tiger how to chip?
I would say it's got to be Harmon or his dad.
Jose
Maria,
yeah. Tiger would seek him out every year at the Masters.
And where's he from?
And talk chipping and pitching.
And where's he from? Where's that player from, Tom?
Spain, of course, yeah.
He's from Spain. Those courses are more built on bump and runs, chipping.
Unbelievable.
Seve had all of that. In America, we don't do it as much. And, people just don't understand it because they don't see it as much as they would if they were over there. And no one's teaching it to them. That's my view.
I agree.
Even though it's a short shot, doesn't mean it's not complicated.
It's not complicated.
It is complicated. It's not that we want to complicate it for our students, but you have to. If it was that easy, why can't everybody do it?
Is anyone grabbing their hand and teaching them, Joe? I don't see it.
Yeah, they are. It's just that I think the part of it's the agronomy. We can get into that later on. I think the grass is too short.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think it's very difficult. I think it's a very, very difficult task to hit a short pitch to a fast green off a tight lie.
Yeah.
It's as complicated as and Faldo said on the telecast one day, he said, if you can chip the ball 2 or 3 yards in the air, just 2 or 3 yards in the air and do a good job, he said, you're going to be a good little pitcher of the ball.
Yeah,
you're going to learn to
big
chip
on
it
that.
really short and then work your way up from there.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah.
You think that's complicated?
Yeah, it
To
can
some
be.
people it is. To other
I mean,
people, it's simple as can be.
If you put a pillow on the ground and have them bump it forward, you think that's complicated?
Alex, it's interesting because like you're a player, you're a great player. Alex, you can it's okay to, pat yourself on the back. Alex is a great player, great ball striker. He is. You simply are, Alex. Just you don't have to be humble about it. You are. So I think I'm gonna say, because I've known you for a long time now, that this is a compliment, but it's come more natural to you, sort of instinctive to you. So it's a beautiful thing that you look at it as simple. I think that's great. Someone like myself, it didn't come that simple.
Is putting complicated?
If you get deep, if you get into things, that word complicated is an interesting one, right? I mean, there's we'll call it like degrees of complication, like degrees of like martial arts, like white belt, orange belt, green belt. It's not like complicated's black. It's not just it. There's a whole range of complication. I would say yes. There's particular putting coaches. If putting wasn't that complicated, why is there David Orr? Why is there David Pelz? Why is there a bunch of different coaches? Paul, I'm just saying.
Phil Kenyon, you got John
Phil
Graham.
Kenyon. Phil, thank you.
I don't know.
John Graham. Aim point. So
I'm a simple guy.
I love it. I love that.
I had kids throw bean bags at a target. I had kids roll balls to a pin. See it, make the ball go in that direction. It doesn't have to be complicated unless we make it complicated.
I go back to the airline pilot. I want my pilot to know about things other than just pushing the pedal.
Right.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And working the stick. I want them to know if whatever happens up there, if we lose an engine, I want them to still be able to fly the damn plane. So now our students, I guess, a lot of them, we're just looking for them to just, let's just hold it. Let's just give them a good grip and go. But I mean, as an instructor, I think we need to be the pilot that knows a lot more than just pushing pedals and moving, pushing buttons and stuff.
I agree.
All right. Hey, this was awesome. We could probably go all night. We could take a 10-minute break.
I was like, no, we can't.
We could. Tom would. We love it. That's why I said let's do it earlier. You guys are like, no. Let's keep it the same time. But I just got a little bit excited there. But anybody have a last word?
My last word is I just thrilled Tom. I'm thrilled Tom agreed to say yes a second time.
Yeah.
Honestly, if we could have Tom on once a month, I think it'd be great. We didn't even mention, kind of we never talked about the Ryder Cup and the picks.
Oh, shoot.
We haven't mentioned what's going on in the game of golf as far as Megan Kang winning her first tournament. I mean, we could go on and on, but the show must end. And from me to you, Tom, I just want to thank you for coming on, and I thank you always for giving me the opportunity to even work at Harmon Golf Club with you. I learned a ton, and I continue to try to learn from you. And it means a lot that you even answer my phone call.
No.
you
So it's not that. It's just I think that it's one of those things where it's just you're sitting there and you're two golf instructors and you're talking golf, which you love. That's it.
And you know, I was always walking in your bag when you didn't have a lesson. I was always over there saying,
That's
Tom,
right.
let's talk. So I loved it then. I love it now. I know the people that listen to our show, they're eating up the fact that you're on. And again, hopefully, as we said last time, hopefully you'll agree to come out a third time.
I'm available anytime.
Well,
I just like to talk about things,
Tom, Alex, now we have you. Did you really have to do that? Like as a kid, it's like, you're watching a show, you're into a show, and then it's like to be continued. The topics you mentioned, now we're going to have to wait to hear about those topics. Okay, I guess we're going to have to wait. Patience. See?
That's right.
That's patience again. I'm going to have to practice patience and wait for Tom to come on another time. But no, I echo just what Alex said, Tom. Thank you very much. Privileged to be able to speak with you. And thanks for always being so willing to give of your time to help help your fellow pros. I mean, it's really an amazing thing that you do. Always love the Cracker Barrels down in
Harmony. We'll be starting up soon.
Even though you probably would,
even though you
probably wanted to throw me out a couple times, and I get a little excited.
Yeah.
But
we all do.
But yeah, we all do. But no, thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Enjoy the Ryder Cup. Enjoy the Solheim Cup.
Yes.
Any one pick you'd read? We love the team. We're playing under the flag. We have no problem with any of the picks. But if you were captain, would there be one that you'd be willing to share that you would replace or no? Were you surprised at any of the selections?
I'm surprised that he didn't take Keegan.
Okay.
I'm surprised, and I'm surprised he didn't take Maronk, and he took Aberg. But he deserved
on the European side, yeah.
Aberg's the
Europeans. Europeans are stout at this. They're great. They got a great team. They're gonna be tough to beat. Tough to beat.
Yeah, Aberg's the first player in Ryder Cup history, they said, to have never played in a major. So he'll be an interesting one to watch. He's never played in a major.
Wow.
He's fresh out of college. He's won. He posted a swing of his on Instagram. Kind of followed him a little bit. I saw him down at the Travelers. Videotaped a couple swings. He posted one of those swings, Tom, you mentioned earlier. I forget exactly what context, but just no interference. That club just went through like a sword through butter. Like just no stickiness, no just he's got a great kind of, contrary to like your Brooke Henderson video you posted, Alex, to us, kind of a little bit of the Aberg, right? Just very classic, efficient, kind of like the motion that you think the swing is sort of headed toward in the future, Tom. A little bit more, right? He sort of represents that.
He's not as jumpy as other guys. He's just smooth. He's just smooth.
Cool.
Well, guess what? We need 3 more minutes, Tom. I thought Joe was going to thank you and just kind of.
That's what I did, didn't I?
I thought Joe was going to help me get you out of the chair back up to your loving wife, but he didn't. He said, "Let's talk about the Ryder Cup right at the end."
Oh shoot!
And so
I'm impatient. I got to work on it.
3 minutes of your time. You said you'd put in Keegan. I don't disagree. I think Keegan's had a great year, and I think he would be a great addition. But who do you take off?
Who do I take off?
You got to put him on. Who do you take off?
Well, I give it to him because he deserves it. And
no, I agree.
I don't think JT. I don't think JT deserves it right now.
JT. Okay. So you take JT off. Second question. I think Brooks Koepka is deserving of a captain's pick. I personally believe that. I don't care what tour he's officiated with. But since you opened up Pandora and you grabbed him, would you not grab another player from Liv? Or, I mean, Dustin Johnson to me is still. I think if you took Dustin Johnson, he'd be a top 3 player on the team, top 3 player. Do you disagree with that?
The only thing I think happens is I think Zach Johnson is very aware of the social circles that these guys travel in.
Yeah.
And I think that Brooks Koepka is in Jupiter, Florida, and travels in these circles and plays with these guys. Keegan Bradley is not an insider.
Right.
So I think that matters when you go away. They're going away for a week this week to Italy. Then they're going to go away. So you don't want any infighting. You want everybody to get along. And if I could pick Brooks Koepka over anybody because he gets along with everybody, I'm going to take him.
And what about Dustin Johnson? Would you not put him in there?
I don't know. I think there's been some conflicts.
Like, Fowler?
I love Fowler because everybody loves Fowler.
I know.
Yeah. But I think Dustin Johnson's a better player.
Too.
I think Dustin Johnson's a better player.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to win, if you're simply trying to win, wouldn't you grab him over a Fowler?
Enter Davis Love into the mix. Anti-Liv.
Hey, he was about to answer, Joe.
Oh, shoot. Go ahead. Sorry.
I had him on the hot seat.
Okay.
He's our guest. Shh,
I think ultimately these guys love it, and Rory will cry and everything else. If he loses, like he did the last time and everything else, it's still an exhibition.
Okay. All right. We got a no answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what those relationships are, and I don't know how he looked at it. Now, he had to take Brooks. Would he have taken Brooks if he didn't win?
No. He had to take Brooks.
He had to take Brooks.
If Brooks didn't win what?
The PGA.
PGA.
Well, I mean, there's no question. If Brooks was not almost qualified for the team on points, he was only like the slimmest of margins away from automatically qualifying. If Brooks Koepka was 15 on the list, I don't think he would have picked him.
No, I agree.
I think because he almost made the team outright in 4 tournaments. I mean, he's one of the best players in the world, right?
I agree.
So
I'm with you.
He was right there, and I think that the team is better off having him on the team than not having him on the team. And if they want to win, you got to pick him. And I think they should have picked Keegan Bradley. I agree with that, Tom.
See, I think the weakest 2 players are Spieth and JT right now.
And they're going to turn together.
Yeah, and they'll play great.
You will? You think so?
Yep.
Now,
because they mesh. It's all about their personalities mesh and they get along and they have a great
time. They're best
buddies.
Yeah. Now, we brought up Glover earlier, and I love Glover. Some people are actually even saying Glover should have been a captain's pick because he hits it so straight. And now his putter is a strength and not a weakness. Do you think Glover should have been a pick, or is that going too far, Tom?
Going too far.
He's not.
Is it a flash in the pan? Will it leave him? Will something else happen? Under the Ryder Cup pressure, will something else happen? I don't know.
Okay.
Would he be the Hunter Mahan of 2023?
Oh boy!
God! Speaking of chipping, sorry.
He should have. Yeah.
Where have they gone? Where have they gone?
Well, just okay. Now I'll give you one other name. The Canadian player who couldn't chip is off the tour now. He's a TV commentator.
The Canadian.
You know who he is? I can't remember his name. Yeah, he's a Canadian tall kid. Good player.
He won the. No, he didn't win TPC, did he?
The Canadian kid.
He didn't win anything. He finished second. He did a lot.
Taylor Pendrith. No, not Pendrith.
No, it's not Pendrith. This is
still
5-6 years ago. And he was a commentator on the Corn Ferry Tour.
It's not Smiley Kaufman, right? No, that's not him.
No, it's not Smiley. This guy's a little bit before that, and he couldn't chip. He's a Canadian, good player. I'll think of it as soon as I
Grant,
leave this.
Okay.
it's not Grant Waite.
No, it wasn't
no.
Grant Waste.
Canadian.
Yeah, that's a
The
star.
You'll
only
think
Canadian
about
I
it.
know is Mike Weir and Henderson.
Corey Connors. No, he's still out there. He doesn't have to
Yeah.
chip. He hits it so good.
This
That's right.
guy's he's a commentator on the not the PGA Tour.
No,
He's he's on the Golf Channel.
no Googling, Alex. No, that's not allowed.
Yeah, he had trouble chipping.
You know what? I saw Anna Nordquist putt around a bunker. Did you see that?
Yes.
I mean, Alex, Anna Nordquist, one of the top LPGA players.
She needs someone to grab her hand, Joe. Hey,
Okay,
this is how you jump
I'll
a
grab the
car.
hand.
These are what jumper cables are. She needs to be
BJ
taught.
Singh chips cross-handed. He won a couple of weeks ago.
Matt Fitzpatrick crossed. Did BJ
Fitzpatrick
win?
does the same thing. So does Chris Couch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kevin
Right?
Stadler too.
I mean,
The
there's
guy's
more than
name,
one way
think
to
of
do
it, think if this reminds you, was the guy's first name Graham?
Dillette. Graham Dillette.
You got it. Yep.
Boom! I love
Boom.
it.
Boom.
There we go.
We don't have to do a rewind section.
Yeah, he
Graham
was
Dillette.
knocking on the door of
Right.
winning, and like kind of like a Cam Young almost. Like he was really knocking on the door, and then is that what happened? Is his short game left him?
Yep.
He needs to go
Gone.
see Joe Mayo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe
needs
he
a
should.
needs 20 degrees of bounce. He
You
doesn't
know
have
who
enough
Joe
bounce.
Mayo's working with now? He's going to reappear. Ben Crane.
Oh geez. Oh, we know Ben.
Well,
We
here's the
saw-
other thing. Now, here's what Joe Mayo has done. He has got who's the kid who plays out of Charlotte? He's got 5 kids. He's won
Webb
a couple
Simpson.
of times. What?
No. Webb Simpson.
Webb Simpson.
No. Okay.
He said Webb Simpson said he could never get over 180. Joseph Mayo's already got him over 180, 182 swing speed, club hit speed.
Seriously?
Ball speed.
Webb Simpson?
Webb Simpson,
He's
182.
gone from 162 to 182. How does that happen?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Watch out.
Webb Simpson's coming
let's watch
back.
out for Webb. Let's
I
watch
mean,
out for Webb.
Simpson, he's going to have to go through Q school again.
No, I think he's
Him and
got
Lexi?
another year of that. He could use this 1 year, and he'll get his caddy back, Paul Tesori.
You think so?
No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Paul's gone.
Cam. He's
staying with Cam.
He's staying
Smart
with. I
move.
would have liked to have seen those two be part of the Ryder Cup team, but you can't take them all.
Nope.
You know, Tom, a few shows ago, I was talking to Joe about a player. We were talking about how you can overthink the golf swing as a player, right? Sometimes you just want to be in the zone. And I was telling Joe about Ralph Goodall.
Oh, geez.
You've heard of Ralph Goodall.
Oh, yeah.
And he wrote a book, and then he completely disappeared. He had to think about what he was doing and put it down on paper. And then he thought so much about it, he couldn't do it anymore.
That's right.
That's got to be, that's probably in there with your fixing the yips guy on the mental, and how, if he can fix the yips, he could have fixed Ralph, but he came along too late.
Maybe.
Well, you mentioned Ben Crane. I'm not proud of this. This is not a proud moment for me, but we were out at PGA West when Ben Crane was working his way through it was the Corn Ferry Tour.
Right,
he was winning out there, and then he got his PGA Tour status. So he was practicing, and he was very free with us. We would able to watch him practice. Well, I asked the wrong question when he was practicing, which I totally respected, and it just kind of like jarred me. But he's like, no, I'm not answering that. Like he just did not. I forget what prompted me to say that, but he just was focused on what he was working on and did not. Oh, you were talking about Ralph Goodall. Yeah. So he just didn't want to go there. Like, I'm in the playing mode. This is not like up for discussion right now, This works for me. I'm not so. We would often, us teachers would get together and have our meetings. They were like this. They were so much fun. But the player, it's a separate
No,
sort of
no.
orbit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which was interesting. So, all right. So what do you think? That was sort of a little appetizer for next. Thanks for staying on longer, Tom and Alec.
Thank
Whatever.
you, Tom.
Always,
All right.
always available.
We
I'm
appreciate
available.
you.
I'm available.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Have a good Ryder Cup.
Yes,
Cheers.
for sure. USA.
Go USA.
You bet.
Talk soon.
Thanks, guys.